I always thought of myself as a rational person, anchored in reality, with both feet firmly planted on the ground. I have a day job as a software engineer, coding the mundane yet comforting algorithms that feed into our daily lives, and an obsession with honesty. The deviant minds of the internet always intrigued me, but I never imagined I would be part of something that seeped into the very fabric of my existence. It all began when I stumbled upon a forum dedicated to the uncanny, as I often did during sleepless nights. Among cryptid sightings and urban legends, one post caught my eye. It was titled The Whisperer, a chilling tale that detailed experiences with a shadowy figure, rumored to trap individuals in a labyrinth of paranoia and eventual demise. The eerie aspect of this legend was the involvement of shared hallucinations. Some users even claimed to have seen it in their own homes. Curiosity piqued, I dove deeper. The poster described the Whisperer as a dark silhouette, often appearing at night, communicating secrets through a cacophony of whispers. Surprisingly, the comment section exploded with similar stories. People posting their own harrowing encounters. They talked about losing time, experiencing visions that blurred the line between reality and nightmare. At first, I took it all with a grain of salt, but as days turned into weeks, the story refused to leave my mind. I often found myself researching late into the night, wishing for some tangible evidence, anything that would shake me from my normally grounded existence. But the more I looked, the more real it became. One night, after reading yet another harrowing post about the Whisperer, I leaned back in my chair, exhausted. The soft glow of my computer screen illuminated my small studio apartment, my fortress against the unknown. But something felt different that night. The silence hung heavier in the air, suggesting more than just the absence of sound. Out of the corner of my eye, I thought I saw movement, a flicker of shadow that seemed to dance just beyond my peripheral vision. My heart raced, but I rationalized it away. It was probably just my mind playing tricks on me after too many late-night Reddit spirals. Yet as I turned off my computer, I could have sworn that distant whisper wrapped around me, echoing just beyond comprehension. The following days were uneventful, save for a growing wariness that burrowed deep into my gut. I began to hear the faintest of whispers during the night, almost melodic, like a lullaby, coaxing me to sleep. I blamed exhaustion, too many nights staring at bright screens, but the sound pulled me deeper into the web of the Whisperer. 1 week later, the situation escalated. I woke up to find a figure standing at the foot of my bed, shrouded in darkness. My heart dropped. I couldn't make out any features, only a formless mass that seemed to absorb the light around it. It was gone in an instant, leaving only a saturated silence in its wake. I shot up, flicking on the lamp. Shadows swallowed my room, creating a cacophony of shapes. Get it together, I muttered to myself. It's just stress. The next day, my phone pinged with notifications from the forum. Another user claimed they had come face to face with the Whisperer, detailing their ordeal with visceral intensity. My palms sweated as I read their description. They spoke about the Whispers being forms of misinformation, laden with lies that seeped into their minds, driving them to the brink of madness. The user ended on a grim note, stating that the Whisperer feeds on the insecurities of its victims, dismantling their mental barriers. Immediately, I felt unease settle over me like a damp blanket. I shrugged it off and decided to meet up with a friend, Mia, a fellow tech enthusiast with a penchant for horror stories. She always brought a dose of sanity back into my spiraling world. As we sipped coffee at our favorite cafe, I confided in her about the Whisperer. I know how this sounds, Mia, I said, but something feels ominously real about it. Her steady gaze pierced through me. So what? You think it's just a coincidence that all these people are having bizarre experiences? Maybe it is, I replied, unsure of where the truth lay. But I keep hearing whispers in the night, and last week. That's enough, she interrupted. You're scaring yourself. This could just be your brain processing stress. Why not turn off the internet for a while? Focus on something else, like work or hiking. Mia's advice rang in my ears as I walked home, but the dread still maintained its vice-like grip. That very night, I decided to take her suggestion. I switched off my internet connection and dived into a book I had long put aside. For the first time in weeks, sleep came easily, or so I thought. 2 days later, I woke up disoriented, the sunlight spilling harshly into my room. I rubbed my eyes, trying to dispel the cobwebs of sleep. My phone buzzed incessantly. Checking it, I found a barrage of messages from Mia. "Mark, are you there? You need to respond. Please text me back. I'm worried. Mark, it's important." An unsettling feeling invaded my mind as I hastily called her. A tone of panic laced her voice when she answered. "What happened? What's going on?" "Mark, thank God. You've got to leave your place right now." I hesitated, confusion clawing at me. "What are you talking about?" "There's been an article. Someone else has gone missing. All their messages led back to your forum." The bottom dropped out of my stomach. "What? Oh, a user named Kyle. He was posting about the Whisperer, and then nothing. No logs of him ever logging in again. But before he went silent, he mentioned another name, yours." "Mine? I didn't even speak to anyone. I haven't posted in weeks." I shouted, clutching the phone tighter. "Still, just come over," she insisted. "I'll explain everything." As I hung up, dread crept back in, wrapping around me like an invasive serpent. I moved quickly, gathering my essentials, leaving the whispering shadows of the apartment behind. Something loomed larger than mere coincidence, and I could feel the pull of the unknown. When I arrived at Mia's place, she was waiting with a solemn expression, a whirlwind of fear mixed with resoluteness swirling in her eyes. "Tell me everything you know about Kyle," she commanded, ushering me inside. I summarized what little I knew about the forum and how the stories were swirling together. Kyle had only mentioned seeing shadowy forms, just like I had. She opened her laptop. A quick clatter of the keyboard punctuated the air and pulled up an assortment of articles surrounding Kyle's disappearance. He was obsessed with the Whisperer like you, but he documented something important right before he vanished. I leaned in closer. "What do you mean?" "The last thing he posted was a transcript of his own experience. He kept a journal about it. It said the Whisperer wasn't just a whisper. It was a lure, a collector of souls." I tried to laugh it off, but Mia wasn't smiling. "What do you mean, collector?" Her eyes darkened. "It feeds on fear, Mark. It preys on the anxious and troubled minds. The rumors say once it whispers your name, you've crossed a line. You become its next target." Panic swirled inside me, knocking against my ribcage. "But I'm just a normal guy." "No, you obsessively researched it, and that ties you to this." Instinctively, I reached for my phone, but the light blinked out, a screen frozen with static. The connection waned, and as I looked back up, I was greeted by darkness creeping along the walls, like fingers elongated by shadows. "Mark!" Mia shrieked as the air thickened. Something sinister was unfurling around us. "What's happening?" The darkness began to twist and form shapes, and echoing whispers filled the room. They were overwhelming, thousands of voices mingling, slowly converging into one, rasping syllables that clawed at the deeper recesses of my mind. I could barely breathe. "Mia!" I shouted. "Run! We have to get out of here!" But the whispers grew louder, blending into a pulsating rhythm that sent shivers down my spine. It felt as though the walls of the room were closing in, the air thickening with an oppressive heaviness. Mia's face was pale, shock-stricken, as she stumbled backward, her eyes darting around, searching for an escape. Suddenly, a dark form materialized in the corner of the room, its presence swallowing the last remnants of light. It was not just a shadow. It seemed to pulsate, shifting and swirling like smoke given life. The shape began to approach us, gliding effortlessly, the whispers intensifying into a chaotic symphony that enveloped us. Mia screamed, her voice cracking. "What is that thing?" I couldn't answer. The figure loomed closer, a sinister silhouette against the fading light. Then it stopped. Silently, it seemed to observe us, as if deciding which of us to claim. The whisper shifted into a single, resonant voice, ethereal yet menacing, stripping away any illusions of safety. "Mark," it purred, dragging my name out like a long-lost lover's caress. "You've been seeking me. seeking the truth. And now, I have found you. Mia, I turned to her, desperately trying to grasp the reality unraveling before me. We need to leave now. Where? Mia's voice trembled, mirroring the chaos unfolding around us. Anywhere, I yelled, my voice barely a whisper against the backdrop of unspeakable darkness. But as I turned toward the door, the figure lunged, blocking our escape with an almost tangible wall of shadow. The whispers morphed into unsettling laughter, mocking us, echoing like the chime of distant bells that grew louder in our ears. I staggered back, my heart hammering wildly in my chest as panic turned my thoughts into a fog. I want you to understand, the figure said, its voice smooth and chilling. You sought the Whisperer, and now the Whisperer seeks you. You've gone too deep into the folds of the dark web without considering what you might awaken. No, I didn't believe, I shouted, grasping for any remnants of my rationality. This can't be real. It's just a story. Every story has a kernel of truth, it replied, its featureless face tilting slightly as if to assess my response. And you, Mark, have fed this truth until it bloomed. You have danced on the edge of the abyss long enough. You are not alone anymore. Mia covered her ears, shaking her head violently. Make it stop. The whispers crescendoed into a surreal cacophony, and I could feel their weight pressing upon me. They spoke not just in voices but in images, of nightmarish scenarios, of people lost in the fog, faces twisted in fear. Each image clawed at my sanity, feeding on my helplessness while my mind spun in circles. I grabbed Mia's arm, a bead of sweat rolling down my forehead. We have to find another way. There has to be something we can do. Without warning, the Whisperer reared back, and a thick, inky tendril darted towards us. I instinctively moved to shield Mia, but the darkness curled around us like a serpent, cold and unyielding. As it touched my skin, an urgent voice boomed into my mind, all-consuming, shaking me to my core. Join me, surrender to the dark. No, I shouted, forcing myself to wrestle against its grip. I won't. Leave us alone. In an instant, the tendril recoiled, as if hit with a powerful surge of electricity. For a brief moment, we were released from its clutches, and Mia staggered back, gasping for breath. I knew we didn't have long before it came for us again. Mark, she said wild-eyed, we need to get to the light. It can't thrive where there's brightness. A desperate plan formed in my mind. I remembered the flashlight I always kept in my bag. Follow me, I barked, pulling her toward the kitchen where I'd last left it. We moved as quickly as we could, but the Whisperer was already advancing, its form undulating in the shadows like a storm cloud ready to swallow the whole world. As we reached the kitchen, I fumbled through my bag, my fingers finally grasping the cool metal of the flashlight. Please work, I murmured, flicking the switch. The beam burst forth, slicing through the encroaching darkness like a sword. For a heartbeat, it illuminated the figure now looming in the kitchen, hunched, sinewy limbs stretching toward us, its featureless face twisting ominously. The light, however, only made the whispers roar louder, almost threatening to drown out my thoughts. You think light can save you? The Whisperer hissed, voice echoing off the walls. Your light is nothing but a flicker in the vast emptiness that I command. Mark, what do we do? Mia cried, her voice almost lost in the overwhelming chorus of darkness. Trust me, I said, my own voice trembling as I steadied the flashlight. It has to be a part of you to know your fears. I took a deep breath, drawing memories from the depths of my mind, my deepest insecurities, my failures, and my regrets. Look at me, I shouted, my own voice rising defiantly against the encroaching tide of shadows. I am not afraid of you. With those words, I waved the flashlight wildly in the air, the beam illuminating the warm tones of the kitchen. And for a moment, it hesitated. The shadows flickered, wavering under the intensity of the light. Your fear is your weakness, the Whisperer roared, its voice almost drowned out by the whispers that echoed through my mind. We backed toward the window, the strong beam of the flashlight shining with every ounce of my being. I felt Mia's presence beside me, a steadying force that fused my resolve. "Take my hand," I urged her, gripping her tightly. Together we aligned, the light emanating from the flashlight illuminating the dark corners of the room, revealing grotesque shapes that writhed in outrage at being burned. The whispers morphed into screams, dissonant and panicked, echoing the anguish born of uncertainty. "What do you want from us?" I yelled into the void. "I want to show you the truth," the whisperer replied, its voice a chilling lace that dripped with malice. "I want you to understand the darkness within you." It lunged forward, splitting the beam of light in half, but I pressed on, forcing the light to hold. "I'm not afraid of you." Suddenly, a flicker of vision imposed itself in the beam. I saw my life flash before my eyes, the faces of my friends, the moments where I felt insignificant and unworthy, all laid bare for me to see. Each failure, each mistake, that creeping sense of inadequacy that had haunted me for so long. The embodiment of my own fears materialized within the dark form, a grotesque amalgamation of every insecurity that had ever burdened me. "You see," the whisperer taunted, its voice slithering through the remnants of my resolve. "These are your truths. You are weak. You sought the whispers, invited darkness into your life, and now it will consume you. You have no escape. Surrender." The shadows began to writhe, forming twisted versions of memories. A college exam I'd flunked, the time I'd been too afraid to confess my feelings to Mia, the moments of watching friends get ahead while I stood still. They danced around me in a vortex of bitterness, fueling the haunting whispers. But within the whirlwind of malice, I saw something else, a flicker of light emanating from my memories. It tugged at my heart. It was pure and filled with love. I remembered the laughter shared with Mia, our endless conversations that turned long nights into vibrant dawns. The joy we brought into each other's lives, the warmth of friendships that survived trials, and the strength I had found in myself when I created something meaningful. In that moment, a surge of determination coursed through my veins. "No!" I shouted, shutting my eyes tighter to block out the darkness that threatened to swallow my thoughts. "You may be shadows of my fears, but I refuse to allow you to define me." As if propelled by my defiance, the beam of the flashlight ignited with new vigor. The whispers transformed into a chorus of panicked shrieks as the shadows recoiled from the light. "I am more than my mistakes. I am more than fear." I directed the beam toward the whisperer, feeling tremendous power radiating from my frantic movements. The figure roared in protest, but the light pushed forward, piercing deeper into the mass of despair and drawing from the essence of hope I had momentarily forgotten. "Mark!" Mia cried out beside me, her voice mixing with the luminescence like an echo of courage. "You can do this. Just believe." The shadows twisted erratically, millions of ethereal faces contorting in agony, trying to escape the relentless light. A fissure formed in its form, and I could feel the pressure of the darkness begin to yield. "Join me, Mark," it hissed desperately, panic creeping into its fragmented voice. "You will never escape. You will be lost forever, just like Kyle." The name struck me like a bolt of ice, seizing my heart with terror. "Kyle," I gasped, recalling the stories I had read about his descent into madness. I had conveniently glossed over the severity of his fate, thinking it was merely a cautionary tale. The reality sunk in. This thing was claiming victims, and I was dangerously close to becoming one of them. "No!" I insisted, shaking my head vigorously. "Kyle let you in? I won't. I refuse to let you take me." I wasn't just fighting for myself, but for every victim the Whisperer had consumed, for every lost soul that had been swept away by its lies. With every ounce of strength, I pushed the flashlight forward, flinging the beam into the dark mass. The air crackled with electric tension as the light shone brighter, illuminating the room as if the sun itself had burst in through the window. The shadows shrieked again, their forms losing cohesion, faces reflecting anguish as they flailed against the torrent of illumination. "Light is a lie," the whisperer screamed, its voice a cacophony of rage and despair. "It cannot save you, Mark. We are part of you." "No, you're not," I shouted, the heat of determination surging through my body. With a primal roar, I directed the light upwards, burning through the tendrils of darkness attempting to suffocate us. "You don't own me." At that moment, a vivid vision struck me, Mia, in her most genuine form, her laughter, her vibrant spirit radiating warmth and kindness. Those fleeting, joyous moments rippled through my consciousness, solidifying my purpose. With my heart thundering, I turned to her with fierce intensity, igniting a bond that was unwavering. "Together," I yelled, squeezing her hand as we shot the beam of light toward each other, intertwining our strengths. "We can't let it win," Mia echoed, her voice firm as she added her energy to mine. In a spectacular display, the light expanded violently, creating a beacon that pushed back against the shadows, ripping through the veil of despair cloaking the room. The whisperer howled in rage, flailing wildly as the brightness surged, its corporeal form fracturing further. "No, you will regret this," it screeched, and for a moment, just a moment, I saw a fleeting glimpse of the darkness it offered. A deep chasm promising power, understanding, dominion over fear. My heart raced, wrought by temptation, but I stood steady. I had faced the truth, however ugly, and I would not return to the depths. "Go back to the pit you crawled from," I roared, pushing harder against the encroaching darkness. The whispering chorus transformed into a chorus of agony as, with one final burst of light, the shadows exploded outward. The cacophony filled the air until it suddenly ceased, collapsing into silence. We stood in a moment of stillness, the flashlight dimming in my hand as everything around us returned to normal. The kitchen, still and quiet, held no traces of the horror that had transpired. Just the dim glow through the window, a reminder of the daylight that remained outside. Mia collapsed to the floor, gasping for breath, and I sank down beside her. We exchanged glances filled with disbelief and an overwhelming mix of emotions. Relief flooded through me while the adrenaline began to fade, leaving behind exhaustion. Did we defeat it? Mia finally managed, her voice barely a whisper. "I think so, at least for now," I replied. But Kyle, my heart sank at the thought of his fate, of the darkness still out there, lurking in the shadows, harvesting the fears of those who dared to seek it. Mia placed a shaky hand on my arm. "We have to warn people, Mark. This can't just be swept under the rug. They need to know." "Yeah, we will," I promised. "But first, we need to get out of here. I can't stand to be in this place another moment." We gathered our things and rushed out of the apartment, the sunlight pouring down like a cleansing wash. It felt invigorating, and though I knew I had narrowly escaped the clutches of the whisperer, I was left with an unnerving realization. Darkness still existed, waiting, watching, whispering to those willing to listen. As we stepped outside, the world felt vibrant and alive, as if it had been restored. But in the back of my mind, the echoes of those voices lingered. I glanced back at my apartment, the memories of that night etched into the walls, a painful reminder of how quickly one can spiral into terror. Would it seek me out again? Mia looked up at me, determination gleaming in her eyes. "We will figure this out together, Mark. We can't let it win." I nodded, and as we walked arm in arm down the busy street, heading towards a new dawn, I found solace in her words. And while I swore never to speak of that night again, I could feel the shadows lurking just beyond my vision, waiting to whisper again. That was a lesson I wouldn't forget. It seeped into my every thought and interaction, reminding me that the whispers were always there, lurking and always eager for a chance to reclaim their influence. But no matter how hard they tried, I had faced my fears, and this time, I was ready. Yet, as I glanced back at the familiar city backdrop, the air thick with life, the faintest whisper traced through my ears, almost playful, almost mocking, causing my heart to skip a beat. "I am always here, Mark." And just like that, the weight of that eternal chase pressed upon me once more. The darkness may be momentarily vanquished, but the whispers are timeless. They can only be silenced, never fully erased. With that lingering knowledge, I tighten my grip around Mia, vowing to face what lies ahead, together. For even though the darkness would always linger, love and friendship would be the light that always guided the way. And that light? It was worth fighting for. And as I stepped into my uncertain future, the shadows waiting to ensnare me again, I would remain vigilant, for I now understood the cost of inviting darkness into my life. More importantly, I understood one truth unequivocally. The whisperer would always listen, but it was my own choice whether I would let it speak. I still remember that night vividly. It was the night that changed everything, the night my father disappeared. The moon hung low in the sky, casting an eerie glow over our old house, a place filled with shadows and secrets. I was 16 at the time, struggling with the weight of adolescence, and my father, once a comforting presence, had become a figure shrouded in mystery. He had always been a curious man, fascinated by the unknown, but recently, his obsession with the supernatural had consumed him. I remember him speaking in hushed tones about the voices he heard, the whispers that beckoned him to the basement. I tried to dismiss it as mere eccentricity, but as the days passed, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. On that fateful night, I had decided to confront him. The house was silent, too silent for my liking. I crept down the dimly lit hallway, the wooden floorboards creaking under my weight. When I reached the basement door, I hesitated. A sense of dread washed over me, but I forced myself to knock. "Dad!" I called softly, my voice trembling. There was no answer, just a suffocating silence. I turned the knob, and the door swung open with a low groan. I stepped inside, my heart pounding in my chest. The basement was dark, illuminated only by the faint glow of the moon filtering through the small window at the far end. "Dad!" I called again, this time louder. My voice echoed off the concrete walls, but still, there was no reply. The air was thick and musty, filled with the scent of mildew and something else, something metallic. I swallowed hard and moved deeper into the basement, using my phone's flashlight to pierce the darkness. The beam of light danced across the walls, revealing old tools, boxes piled high with dust, and scattered debris. And then I saw it, a large, ornate mirror standing against the wall, its surface tarnished and cracked. I felt a strange compulsion to approach it. As I drew closer, I noticed something moving in the reflection. My heart raced as I realized it wasn't just my own image staring back at me. There was a figure behind me, shadowy and indistinct, but I could feel its presence looming over me. I spun around, but the basement was empty. I turned back to the mirror, and to my horror, I saw my father's reflection standing beside me, looking gaunt and hollow. His eyes were sunken, filled with an emptiness that sent chills down my spine. "Help me, David," he whispered, his voice a mere breath, distorted and eerie. I stumbled back, feeling a wave of nausea wash over me. "They won't let me go. You must resist them." I wanted to scream, to run, but my feet felt glued to the floor. The shadows began to writhe around me, whispering incoherently. I could make out words here and there. "Join us. Become one. Your destiny awaits." Panic surged within me. I turned to flee, but the shadows surged forward, wrapping around my legs and pulling me down. I fell to the ground, struggling against their grip. "Dad!" I cried, desperate for his help, but he was gone from the mirror, leaving only darkness in his place. The whispers grew louder, a cacophony of voices clamoring for my attention, drowning out all rational thought. "David, come to us." Suddenly, everything went black. I don't know how long I was out, but when I came to, I was alone in the basement. The mirror stood silently in front of me, but the shadows had retreated, leaving only a faint chill in the air. I scrambled to my feet, my heart racing, and rushed up the stairs, desperate to escape the nightmare I had just experienced. But as I reached the door, I hesitated. What if my father needed me? What if he was still trapped in that darkness? Guilt gnawed at me, but I forced myself to turn the knob and push the door open. I had to find him. Over the next few days, I tried to piece together what had happened. I searched the house, the basement, and the surrounding woods, but my father was nowhere to be found. It was as if he had vanished into thin air. The police were called, but they found nothing. I was left with only questions and a growing sense of dread. The whispers never left me. At night, I would lie awake, straining to hear the voices that haunted my dreams. They promised me power, knowledge, and a place among them. But I could also feel their darkness pressing against my mind, threatening to consume me. I tried to resist, but it was becoming harder each day. One evening, as I sat in my room, staring out the window at the moonlit woods, I felt an overwhelming urge to return to the basement. Something deep within me knew that the answers I sought lay in the darkness below. I gathered my courage and grabbed a flashlight before heading down the familiar staircase once more. This time, the air felt different, charged with energy and anticipation. I approached the mirror, my heart pounding in my chest. As I reached out to touch its surface, a jolt of electricity shot through me, and the shadows returned, swirling and flickering like a storm. "David," they whispered, their voices a haunting melody. "Join us." I swallowed hard, feeling the pull of their darkness. But in the depths of my mind, I could still hear my father's voice. "Fight it, David. You're stronger than they are." With renewed determination, I gripped the edges of the mirror and pulled it away from the wall. Behind it, I discovered a hidden alcove filled with dusty old books and strange artifacts. My heart raced as I realized that this was my father's secret study, a place where he had explored the unknown. I began to rummage through the items, desperate for something that would help me understand what was happening. One book caught my eye, its leather cover worn and cracked, with strange symbols etched into its surface. As I opened it, the pages revealed a wealth of knowledge about the supernatural and the shadows that thrived on fear and despair. But there was also a warning. Beware the darkness that seeks to consume you. To resist, you must confront your fears. Suddenly, I felt a chill wash over me as the shadows coalesced into a shape, a figure standing in the corner of the room. I spun around, heart racing. It was my father, but he looked different, more hollow, more lost. "David," he said, his voice echoing, "you must join me. The darkness is powerful, but together, we can harness it." "No!" I shouted, stepping back. "You're not my father anymore. You're just a shadow of what you used to be." The figure lunged at me, and I felt the coldness wrap around me, suffocating and disorienting. The whispers swirled around my mind, trying to drown out my thoughts. "Join us. Become one with the shadows." In that moment, I remembered the book in my hands and its warnings. I had to confront my fears. With all my strength, I pushed the darkness away and shouted, "I refuse to let you take me. I am not afraid." The shadows screamed in fury as they recoiled from my voice, their form dissipating like smoke in the wind. My father's figure flickered, struggling against the power of my resolve. "David, no! You need to come back. Stop. You're not my father. You're a prisoner of this darkness." With a surge of defiance, I turned the pages of the book, searching for a way to save him. I found a passage about breaking the hold of shadows, an incantation meant to free those trapped within their grasp. With trembling hands, I recited the words aloud, my voice echoing through the basement. The shadows shrieked, twisting and writhing as the air crackled with energy. I could feel the darkness fighting against my words, but I pressed on, pouring all my emotion into the incantation. "I command you, shadows, release him. Free my father from your grip." As the last word left my lips, a blinding light erupted from the mirror, engulfing the room in a radiant glow. I shielded my eyes, feeling the shadows dissipate around me. When the light faded, I opened my eyes, and to my shock, my father stood before me, no longer a hollow figure, but whole and alive. "David," he exclaimed, relief flooding his voice. "You did it. You broke the hold they had on me." Tears streamed down my face as I embraced him, feeling the warmth of his body, the steady beat of his heart. "I was so scared, Dad. I thought I lost you forever." "I'm sorry for everything," he said, pulling back to look into my eyes. "The shadows, they're more than just a presence. They feed on fear, and I let them in. I thought I could control it, but it nearly consumed me. I felt them too," I confessed. "They wanted me to join them. They kept whispering, promising power." He nodded gravely. "They're deceptive, but we can't let them win. We have to destroy the mirror and everything connected to them." I turned to the mirror, still glowing faintly with the remnants of the light. The surface rippled like water, reflecting not just my father and me, but a swirling mass of darkness that roiled in the corners of the glass. The shadows were still there, whispering and beckoning, their hunger insatiable. "We need to destroy it," I said, my voice trembling with urgency. "They'll come back, Dad. They'll try to take you again." My father nodded, his expression serious. "You're right, but how? The mirror is a conduit for their power. We need to sever that connection." I glanced around the basement, searching for anything that might help us. My eyes landed on the old tools scattered across the floor: hammers, chisels, and saws. I grabbed a hammer, its weight comforting in my hand. "Let's break it. It's the only way." "No," my father said, his eyes widening. "If we destroy it without understanding how it works, we could unleash something far worse. We need to be careful." "What do you mean?" I asked, panic rising in my chest. "We don't have time for careful. They could take you again at any moment." He placed a steadying hand on my shoulder. "Listen to me. There are rituals for binding and sealing the mirror. We must weaken its power first, and then we can destroy it. But we have to work together." Nodding, I took a deep breath to calm my racing heart. "Okay, what do we do?" He moved to the shelves filled with dusty books, quickly rifling through them. "Find something that can help us," he said urgently. "Look for any mention of sealing or banishing." I searched frantically through the old tomes, the smell of aged paper filling my nostrils. Finally, I found one, its spine cracked and the pages yellowed with age. I opened it and began reading. "There's a ritual here," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "It says we can weaken the mirror's power by performing a binding incantation while creating a physical barrier." "Let's do it," my father replied, his eyes fierce with determination. I quickly gathered items mentioned in the text: salt, an iron nail, and a piece of rope. As I set up the circle around the mirror, I could feel the shadows stirring, their whispers growing louder, angry at our defiance. "David, hurry!" my father urged, his gaze darting nervously to the mirror. I finished the circle and stepped back, heart pounding. "Now what?" "Now we chant the incantation together," he instructed, taking my hands in his. "Remember, focus on the bond between us. We can do this." As we began to chant, the air thickened with tension. The whispers intensified, swirling around us like a tempest. "You cannot escape," they screamed, the shadows coiling and writhing as if in pain. The mirror pulsed ominously, its surface distorting and reflecting flashes of dark faces, twisted, hungry, and unrecognizable. I felt fear clawing at my chest, but I gripped my father's hands tighter, channeling my fear into resolve. Bound by blood, by light, by will, we chanted in unison, our voices rising above the chaos. "We seal this mirror. We sever this link. Let darkness retreat, and light be our strength." With each repetition, I felt the energy around us shifting, the shadows recoiling as if struck. "Keep going. Don't stop," my father urged, his voice steady despite the panic in the air. Suddenly, the shadows lunged at us, their forms twisting into grotesque figures. "You will regret this," they howled, a cacophony of anger and desperation. "Focus," my father shouted. "We can do this." As we chanted louder, the mirror began to crack, lines spidering across its surface. The shadows screamed, their voices blending into a discordant symphony of rage and fear. I could see faces forming in the cracks, lost souls, trapped and tormented, crying out for release. "Let them go!" I yelled, feeling a surge of power as the words poured from my lips. "We bind you. We seal you. The light surrounding us grew brighter, pushing against the darkness. And for a moment, I thought I could see my father's true form shining through the shadows, a beacon of hope. But just as I felt victory within reach, one of the shadow figures lunged toward me, its icy tendrils wrapping around my throat. "Join us, David," it hissed, its breath cold and foul against my skin. "You belong with us." Panic surged through me as I struggled against its grip, clawing at the darkness. My vision blurred, and I felt the edges of consciousness slipping away. Just when I thought I would succumb, I heard my father's voice cutting through the chaos. "Fight, David. Remember who you are?" I focused on his words, drawing strength from them. "I am not afraid," I shouted, my voice echoing in defiance. "I won't let you take me." With a sudden surge of will, I yanked free from the shadow's grasp and turned back to the mirror. The cracks had widened, and the light was blinding. "We can't stop now," I shouted, my voice ringing with determination. My father nodded, his expression fierce. Together, we finished the incantation, our voices rising to a crescendo. The mirror shattered with a deafening roar, shards flying in every direction. The shadows shrieked, their forms disintegrating into wisps of darkness, scattering like leaves in the wind. And then silence. The basement was eerily quiet, the oppressive atmosphere lifting as the last remnants of shadow faded away. I fell to my knees, gasping for breath. The mirror was gone, replaced by a gaping void where it had stood. "Did we do it?" I asked, trembling. "Are they gone?" My father knelt beside me, his eyes wide with relief. "I think we did. We broke the connection." But his voice trailed off, a shadow of doubt crossing his face. "What is it?" I asked, anxiety creeping back in. He looked around the basement, the shadows having retreated but still casting an ominous presence. "We need to be vigilant. They can return if we let our guard down." Nodding, I felt a newfound resolve building within me. "We'll figure this out together. I won't let them take you again." As we began to gather ourselves, I noticed something glimmering among the debris on the floor. I reached down, brushing aside the dust to reveal a small, intricately carved box. "What's this?" I asked, holding it up. My father's eyes widened, and he took it from my hands. "I don't know, but it feels important." Carefully, he opened the box, revealing a delicate silver key nestled inside. This must be a part of it. A key to something. Something to what? I wondered aloud. Before he could answer, a chill ran down my spine as I heard a faint whisper echoing in the air around us. "You cannot escape your destiny." My heart dropped as the shadows began to reassemble, creeping back into the basement, darker and more insidious than before. I glanced at my father, panic flooding my veins. "No!" I shouted. "We defeated you." But the shadows laughed, a chilling sound that sent shivers through my body. "You may have broken the mirror, but you can never escape what lies within. The key is only the beginning." As the shadows surrounded us, I gripped my father's hand tightly, realizing that our battle was far from over. We had fought hard, but the darkness was relentless, and now we stood on the precipice of an even greater challenge. "We have to find out what this key opens," I said, my voice firm despite the fear gnawing at my insides. "It has to lead us to a way to finally end this." My father nodded, his expression steely with determination. "We'll figure it out together. We have to." With that, we stepped into the unknown, prepared to face whatever horrors lay ahead, determined to confront the darkness that sought to consume us, armed with the knowledge we had gained and the bond that had only grown stronger in the face of fear. As we left the basement, the whispers echoed behind us, a sinister reminder of the shadows that still lingered. But we wouldn't be defined by fear. We would fight, and we would find a way to reclaim our lives from the darkness. The journey was just beginning, and I could feel the weight of our destiny pressing down upon us. Little did I know, the key would unlock secrets far deeper than I could have ever imagined.